Welcome to the webinar training, The Science of Safely Navigating Your Shamanic Calling. So I want to welcome you, brave soul, to a gathering of individuals hearing a call to some sort of spiritual initiation, a tribe of souls, not divided by race, class, religion, nation, but united by the qualities in the innermost core of your being, a tribe of shamanic individuals. This training is dedicated to Westerners who feel called to some sort of shamanic path. It is suitable for those just starting out on the path and for those who have been walking the path for some time now. What will be taught here has universal value. So you are about to receive quite a lot of knowledge that you may consider sacred, rare, and particularly valuable. So please prepare your space, your vessel, your psyche for a big influx. It is strongly recommended that you close any leaks. Turn off your phone or put it on silent and turn off your notifications. Close Facebook. And don't just keep this on in the background as you do other stuff. This is serious subject matter with the potential to change your life. So please, I ask your full attention right now. And I guarantee you'll be thoroughly satisfied at the end. Treat this like you're going to see a movie at the cinema. So for the next 2 hours, give your undivided attention. Allow yourself to become engrossed in the session. Allow yourself to be totally present. If you allow yourself to enter into a light trance, the knowledge will be able to reach you more profoundly. But if you allow yourself to be distracted, you can be robbed of something precious. Preserve your vessel so that something profound can take place within it and the good work doesn't leak out. There's so much valuable information here, and you're not going to be able to write it all down. And you're going to want to have these slides to refer back to. So if you stay until the end of the training portion, the 90-minute mark, I'll give you a link to download the PDF of this entire presentation. So stick around, turn the phone off, log out of Facebook, put the pen down, and just take it in. Before we dive into the training, let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to all of this. So for those who don't know, my name is Andrew Camargo, and I have a little story to tell, a short story. In 1999, I had a pretty unremarkable existential crisis where I didn't know who I was, I didn't know the purpose of my existence, I didn't know whether there was a God or what happens after I die. And during this time, I received a call to a shamanic path, although I didn't realize this at the time. So for the next 5 years, I endured real instability. Others feared I was losing my mind. Thankfully, I avoided a psychiatric diagnosis. During this time, I was manically creative, filling journals. I was an aspiring screenwriter. I was studying the hero's journey, which was the closest thing I had to a map, and cinema had pretty much taken over the role of religion in my life. In the absence of a Gnostic shamanic tradition, I was subconsciously piecing one together from my own experiences with the archetypal realm, the collective unconscious, and the mythical imagination. Then I discovered the concept of shamanism and immediately identified with it. It gave me a powerful and empowering paradigm for what I was going through. I said to myself, oh, so that's what's going on. Okay. And I, of course, got very excited with that, and I started researching it, and this immediately led me to the concept of entheogens. And for those who don't know, entheogens are sacramental plants such as psilocybin mushrooms or ayahuasca or peyote, or even LSD. So I attempted to pursue entheogenic shamanism in an unguided, reckless way, without elders or without even a lineage. And of course, I got quickly in, way over my head, and was tricked in many ways by the tricksters at the threshold of the spiritual world. I fell into indulging in shadow work, deliberately descending to the underworld, getting involved in the darker side of shamanism. I didn't have any elderhood to guide my dangerous initiatory journey. But thanks to the intervention of my higher spiritual guides, I was pulled out of my dangerous trajectory preoccupied with the questions: what does it mean to become a modern shamanic individual? How does one become an effective modern shamanic individual, especially without dedicated elderhood? And what are the dangers of self-guided initiation, and how can we protect ourselves from these? This led me to a profound quest over the next 12 years to both the Amazon and the proverbial library of Western esoteric wisdom. I've since returned from this journey, and I'm here to share the fruits of it now. I've started sharing in the email course, Safely Navigating Your Shamanic Calling, and I will share even more in today's training. Today, you will receive a distillation, an essential oil of the past 18 years of intense spiritual seeking, initiatory work, and an ongoing effort to retrieve ancient shamanic knowledge, unite it with Western esotericism, and publish it in a uniquely modern form suited to the Western seeker living in Western civilization. What you'll receive in this training is a taste of what I call modern soul science. It deals with what can generally be termed modern shamanic crisis, a call to be initiated into the spiritual realms, but in a way that integrates the ancient wisdom of shamanism with the esoteric wisdom of Western alchemy, the modern analytic wisdom of psychology, and the timeless creative and intuitive wisdom of mythology and art. Approaching my own initiatory process in this way, I have been able to navigate my shamanic calling, at least to the point of being able to offer something valuable to those in my tribe, generally speaking, to modern Western shamanic seekers. And it's really helping people. I've been piloting my flagship course, MSS 101, and more recently, the Basecamp curriculum, with a group of, the 101 course, which is currently not open for enrollment, with a group of 166 students, and the results have been profoundly positive. And I piloted the Basecamp curriculum in summer of 2018, and we piloted it with 75 students, and the results have been profoundly positive. So I am sharing this modern soul science now because I believe it is urgently needed. Many are called to a shamanic path, but without the science of initiation, much can go wrong. But with it, much can go right. We are in the midst of a widespread shamanic crisis, and it is essential that we have the appropriate tools to navigate this crisis. But we can't simply import shamanic wisdom from indigenous people. Each culture produces its own expression of the universal shamanic impulse, and that expression is uniquely suited to the culture that produced it. We cannot take cultural context out of the equation. We need a Western lineage of shamanic wisdom, and we have one. And I'm going to give you the keys to start tapping into it today, but you'll really need to pay attention to the training. So in this training, we are going to cover what is a shaman in the archetypal sense, initiation, shamanism, and primeval wisdom, crisis, both individual crisis and collective crisis, modern shamanism and primeval wisdom in a new form. And then I will lay out a basis for the modern science of initiation. And this will cover the first 35 minutes. Then we will get into the 3 universal subtle dangers, and this will take us to the 65-minute mark. And then the universal solution to the dangers, to the 75-minute mark. And then solutions in practice, and this will take us to the 90-minute mark. And for those who are still here, I will bring up a link to download a PDF of this entire slideshow presentation. I'm not going to send it, but the link will show up in the chat box on the right of the screen. Then I will give you an opportunity to enroll in the School of Modern Soul Science for $25 a month. And then we will close with the frequently asked questions, which begin at the 120-minute mark, and they'll go about 30 or 40 minutes. So let's begin. What is a shaman? Well, where do we get the word shaman from? Most scholars on the subject claim it comes from Siberian indigenous traditions, but the name has since taken on an archetypal meaning, referring to a phenomenon that appears in all cultures throughout all ages. Archetypally speaking, a shaman is one who is twice born, has experienced initiatory death and rebirth, one who has experienced the death of materialistic consciousness and rebirth to conscious experience of the spiritual world. As a result of this initiation, is now able to work as a technician and medium between the material and the spiritual. Even conventional archaeology affirms that the phenomenon of shamanism goes back at least 30,000 years, well before recorded history. This primeval manifestation of human spirituality is based on direct, clairvoyant experience of the spiritual worlds. Shamanism is our unbroken link to what we can call primeval wisdom. Primeval wisdom is the visionary experience, visionary knowledge, visionary gnosis of the spirit world, the entities that inhabit these realms, the higher knowledge that comes from these realms and these entities. It is a knowledge of the immortality of the soul, its continued existence in the spiritual realms after the death of the physical body. It is a divine memory, transpersonal memory, memory of past ages and past lives, ancestral memory, mythical memory, antediluvian memory, cosmic memory, memory of our divine origins. It is the basis of the mysteries of all civilizations throughout all ages, the basis of the sacred sciences, sacred geometry, mathematics, temple and pyramid architecture, alchemy, astrology, magic, healing. It is the fountainhead of all culture, the origin of imagination, creativity, and inner vision, the origin of all art and music, all dance and drama, the origin of all ancient mythology. It is the source of the ancient pagan wisdom, magical knowledge, natural magic, the light of nature, the wisdom of the goddess, healing knowledge, prophetic knowledge. Entheogens. Entheogens are revealers of this primeval wisdom. So entheogens such as psilocybin and Amanita muscaria mushrooms, ayahuasca, peyote, huachuma, iboga, LSD, cannabis, and others. These grant access to the primeval wisdom. In fact, they give a very powerful revelation of it, oftentimes more powerful than you can handle. So in Judeo-Christian mythology, we have two symbols for the primeval wisdom: the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the serpent that tempts us to eat the fruit before we are ready to handle it. And this brings up an important point about the primeval wisdom. It can be used for good or for evil. This is highly pertinent to the general shamanic situation we find ourselves in today. So let us now look at the history of the primeval wisdom. The primeval wisdom was once widespread. Primeval wisdom was once the common inheritance of all humanity. It was much more accessible for everybody at a stage of evolution when the ego was just a germ in the psyche. So I'm talking about antediluvian times, over 12,000 years ago, and even for the first 5,000 years after the flood, until approximately 7,000 years ago. As a result, in these primeval times, there was less individualized consciousness and more awareness of the interconnectedness of everything amongst humanity, between humanity and nature, between humanity and the spiritual realms. Dream life and waking life were virtually inseparable. But the primeval wisdom had to fade. It was lost to the greater part of humanity. The beginning of the fading of the primeval wisdom coincided with the advent of writing and what we call history, and the emergence of the ego and the first stages of materialism. Although it faded for humanity in general, it was not entirely lost. It was preserved by unique individuals, by shamans, by great initiates, those initiated into the mysteries, and those born with natural clairvoyance, and this was earned from initiation in past lifetimes. Why did the primeval wisdom have to fade away? So that the ego, that is to say human individuality, the I am, could emerge and evolve. This was a necessary sacrifice for the evolution of human freedom and the development of our individuality. But the problem with that is that in order for the ego to emerge, humanity in general had to lose that original primeval awareness of our connection to the spiritual realms and to the cosmic web of life and our true place in divine nature and in the divine cosmos. Individuality begins with alienation from all-encompassing oneness with the cosmos. The ego has been born out of a separation from the unity of all things. It is born out of an illusion of separateness. This has ushered in the age of the illusory ego. Over the past 7,000 years, we have seen the emergence of the illusory ego. This has given us our modern intellect, our free will, and self-determination, our freedom, also our personality, individuality, and selfhood, but at a great cost. Here is a historical timeline of how it generally played out in the culture that has become what we call our modern Western civilization. So you can see 12,000 years ago, the primeval wisdom begins to fade. Around 7,000 years ago, ancient Egypt and Sumer. And then you see the illusory ego beginning in germ form around then and starting to emerge through Greece and really breaking through 2,000 years ago in the age of Rome. And in the Dark Ages, the primeval wisdom all but disappears and the illusory ego ascends. But then something really interesting starts to happen in the Renaissance, which I will cover in a moment. So this brings us to today. So the primeval wisdom gradually faded while the remnants were systematically rooted out. And the primeval wisdom was largely lost, but it has been gradually re-emerging. It is re-emerging through what we call today the unconscious psyche, or what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. But what happens when the primeval wisdom emerges through the subconscious psyche beneath the illusory ego? What happens here? Understand first, the illusory ego is inherently repressive and antagonistic toward the primeval wisdom, and that goes a long way to explaining why the primeval wisdom was rooted out in the Dark Ages. The illusory ego fears the primeval wisdom and fights to dominate it, fragment, suppress, persecute, exterminate, and exploit it. Why? Because the higher truths of the primeval wisdom dismember the fundamental illusions that the illusory ego is built upon. Materialism, separation, atheism, egocentrism. The antagonism of the illusory ego toward the primeval wisdom creates fragmentation between the conscious and unconscious psyche, and this leads to monstrous blind spots. And this further leads to shadow projections and the persecution of the projected shadow, which we'll get into during the training. Examples of this are religious fundamentalism and atheism, scientific materialism, nationalism, political extremism, corporate psychopathy, suppression of the divine feminine, homophobia, destruction and exploitation of nature, colonialism, imperialism, persecution of shamanism, genocide of indigenous peoples, suppression of cultural freedom, religious freedom, freedom of consciousness. This happens in the individual psyche. The illusory ego suppresses the unconscious, leading to fragmentation, soul loss, or at the very least, neurosis. And this is what happens in the macrocosmic psyche of humanity. The macrocosmic illusory ego fragments from the world's soul and then persecutes it. This has led to a collective crisis of soul loss, collective estrangement from the divine in nature and the divine in the cosmos and the divine in ourselves. Fragmentations dominating the subconscious, manifesting themselves outwardly in material reality. That's what this has led to, and that's what we can see today. This has manifested as a continuous persecution and diabolical exploitation of the primeval wisdom, the persecution of paganism while appropriating pagan rites and rituals, persecution and perversion of the goddess mysteries, violence against divine nature, violence against women, persecution of shamanism, persecution of entheogenic traditions, persecution of initiatory wisdom, or exploitation of it for power. So what are we seeing today? The macrocosmic illusory ego of humanity is doing great violence against the world soul, the collective unconscious of humanity and the earth. The illusory ego has become hijacked, possessed by diabolical forces, driving humanity into the abyss, driving the earth to desolation, turning earth or attempting to turn earth to a sort of living hell. This culminates in the crisis of our age, which is global and catastrophic in scope. On the other side, there is a spiritual renaissance, and we are on the verge of a monumental leap in our evolution. The stakes are immensely high, even bigger than perhaps we can currently perceive because you can't see the forest from the trees. We are faced with the archetypal shamanic crisis of the abyss. We have no choice but to face the abyss. We are heading toward it one way or another. What matters is how we face it. So, here is the good news about crisis. Crisis is the first step toward healing, spiritual initiation, and the positive evolution of consciousness. Crisis breaks down the illusory, uninitiated ego and releases the soul body. Now, when I say soul body, I am referring to the astral body. And from this point forward, I will be referring to it as the astral body, but I also mean the soul body. The astral body can be directly observed through clairvoyance, and it can be indirectly observed through imagination, dreams, art, and through projections and desires. The astral body is the medium and vehicle for all shamanic work. A shaman is a specialist of the astral body, using their own astral body to work on the astral bodies of others. In modern psychology, the astral body is referred to as the psyche and is largely unconscious or unawakened in most people. And the astral body is the messenger of the primeval wisdom, the messenger of the collective unconscious. So, when the illusory ego breaks down, the astral body is freed from its suppression and starts to awaken. And through the awakening astral body, the primeval wisdom can return to consciousness once more. This is what is happening today. The collective illusory ego faces the abyss, but as it falls into crisis, the primeval wisdom is returning to humanity on a wide scale. Remember this? The primeval wisdom fades and the illusory ego emerges. That is a timeline of the last 12,000 years of Western history leading up to the current crisis. Now here is a narrative that projects ahead through this current crisis and into the triumphant outcome. In this triumphant narrative, 4 things must happen. First, the illusory ego is dismembered. Then the astral body awakens to consciousness. And through the astral body, the primeval wisdom emerges. And then finally, a new ego is reborn, resurrected as an initiated ego. And this new initiated ego unites with the primeval wisdom to form a new stage of human spiritual evolution in which ego and primeval wisdom interpenetrate and transform each other. So here's what that looks like. The illusory ego fails and the primeval wisdom returns. So today you see a sharp decline of the illusory ego. It falls into the abyss and dies. But out of that, an initiated ego is reborn. And when the illusory ego fails, that opens up the astral body, and through the astral body, the primeval wisdom to return. And then the returning primeval wisdom and the initiated ego unite. And that's at the peak, at the top right. This new stage of spiritual evolution consists of a great many people becoming shamanic individuals who are conscious of the spiritual realms and able to work in some sort of healing, regenerative capacity for humanity. Shamanic individuals have necessarily awakened and cultivated their astral body. Shamanic initiation requires learning to consciously control the astral body in both immaterial and material realms. But the astral body's awakening is only the first stage of a long process of initiation and development. The astral body must be worked on, awakened, healed, illuminated, transmuted, tamed, brought under conscious control. And that is not easy. One needs a science of initiation to consciously understand the process in order to navigate it successfully. Understanding the nature of the astral body is the key to understanding the archetypal initiation journey. Understanding its process of awakening is the starting point for understanding the science of initiation. So the astral body is the catalyst and guide for shamanic initiation, is the shaman's medium and vehicle for working, and is the subject of all healing work. The astral body is a mediating body that mediates between matter and spirit. It's the soul between matter and spirit. And this is a drawing from Carl Gustav Jung from the Red Book. And this represents exactly this, the mediating body between the above and the below. And one of the features of this mediating body is that it can develop. And when it develops, it mediates better, more profoundly. So this is shamanic development. From this to this, shamanic development. Remember, the astral body is largely unconscious in most people. Therefore, a shaman is conscious of precisely that which is unconscious in most. So on an individual level, when the illusory ego breaks down, the unconscious erupts. The astral body emerges. And when the astral body emerges, one experiences many things intensely. Intensified dreams, new awareness of the mythic archetypal fabric underlying reality, experiencing dream time while awake, intensified synchronicities, new perception of magical reality, of the mysteries of consciousness, deepened understanding of our interconnectedness, our divine nature, but also deepened understanding and perception of conspiracies against our spiritual freedom. A thirst for seeking out forms of trance and soul flight, perceiving spirits, hearing, seeing, or being more consciously influenced by them. An eruption of shadow work, old traumas, unhealed wounds, past life karma. Dramatic surfacing of unconscious contents, all the repressed crap comes up. Often an eruption of erotic sexual energy, dramatic increase in sexual magnetism, sexual activity, new capacities for sexual ecstasy, eruption of fantasy life, realization of desires that were previously suppressed. Tremendous inspiration and enthusiasm, but also chaos and lack of groundedness, because we're dealing with a weak ego. So there's an emphasis on interconnectedness, but lack of development of a grounded individuality. The old ego personality basically gets ripped apart and now inspired or even puppeted by the primordial archetypal powers of the psyche. So there is a tendency to identify with the new emerging ego, to identify the new emerging ego with the archetypes of the collective unconscious. So, as you know, the emergence of the astral body is a difficult process to navigate. The astral body has a complex nature and is usually in a chaotic, suffering state when it first starts to emerge. Initially, the astral body is usually wounded, traumatized, somehow fragmented at a personal level and also at a macrocosmic level from thousands of years of suppression and abuse by the illusory ego. It is innately dual-natured, paradoxical, a conflict of opposites. It is initially all mixed up in a state of chaos. It is evasive with an inherent trickster nature, basically out of control. The astral body contains both light and dark, desire and fear, spiritual impulses and primitive instincts. angelic and bestial qualities, much of which are initially unconscious. It contains all your desires, including and especially sexual desire, but also your loftiest spiritual yearnings for union with the divine. It contains all emotions, both consciously experienced emotions and suppressed emotions, all your pleasures and joys, all your pains and fears, all your hidden pride, and all your buried shame. Everything, the totality of your psyche. It contains your karma and trauma from this life and past lives. So even before it is conscious, it is unconsciously guiding you to many of your hardships, so-called accidents, and inexplicably powerful personal relationships, attractions and repulsions, all in accordance with the mysteries of your karma. And on the other hand, it also contains your incredible gifts, talents, abilities earned from past lifetimes, clairvoyance, creativity, various forms of genius, capacity for love, healing, and virtues like patience and compassion. This is another drawing from Carl Gustav Jung from the Red Book, and I believe this is a good representation of the astral body in its conflict of opposites and how it's mixed up and needs to be sorted out. So because your astral body contains your traumas of this and past lives, the fragments created by these wounds can house shadowy entities, spirits, that undermine you or even torment you from their hiding places in your subconscious. These entities dominate and influence the soul fragments, creating micro-splittings in the total personality, what I call mini multiple personality disorder, operating all in the subconscious. Your soul can literally be at war with itself, with the possessed fragments blocking and draining the core of your being that is trying to incarnate your higher self and accomplish your destiny. So an integral early stage of shamanic initiatory work on the astral body is healing and soul retrieval work, which most often involves descent to the underworld and facing the darkness at the source of the trauma. Remember, the astral body is the messenger of the collective unconscious, of the primeval wisdom to the ego, to consciousness. But if the astral body, as the medium, as the messenger, is not itself healed, the message will be distorted by your shadows and unhealed wounds. So here's the key to healing the astral body: alchemical inner work. Through inner work, you can engage in healing, transformative alchemy upon the contents of your astral body. This inner work is by no means easy and requires much persistence, discipline, courage, and guidance. Thankfully, guidance is available. And guidance is invaluable. This profound work is complex and rigorous, and accordingly, there is an art and a science to carrying it out fruitfully. This art and science has been developed over centuries and millennia, and has been passed down to us through a chain of sages, initiates, and shamans. I'll tell you more about this at the end of the training. So as if it weren't already challenging enough to start facing your karma from this life and past lives, in addition to facing all the traumas you've endured in this life and in past lives, if this weren't challenging enough already, the astral body also has an inherently rebellious, trickster-like, expansive nature, which, if left unchecked, untransmuted, can lead your ego into danger and delusion. Perhaps the best symbol for the astral body in its raw, untransmuted form is the dragon. It is essential to perform alchemy on the dragon nature of the astral body in order to safely navigate your shamanic path. It is necessary to tame or slay this dragon in order to assimilate its archetypal power and transform it into your loyal shamanic ally. So this is what makes an effective shamanic individual. A shaman can be considered one who has, in the first place, tamed made an ally out of the dragon nature of the astral body, out of the astral body. This is a prerequisite. When the astral body can be consciously wielded, it can be used as a reliable vehicle for shamanic work. This can only happen when the ego and the astral body have united to form a third body, the higher self. To manifest the higher self, all the conflicting pairs of opposites in the astral body need to be sorted out, healed, and recombined in a higher order. This sorting out process of the astral body is what constitutes the groundwork of shamanic initiation. So, a modern shamanic individual has the following prerequisite tasks before they can be of service: has undergone the death of the illusory ego, has experienced an awakening of the astral body, has reforged an initiated ego out of the womb of the astral body, is now working consciously out of the initiated ego to further transmute the dragon nature of the astral body, so that the initiated ego can unite with the transmuted astral body to form a third body, the higher self. The higher self is the result of the initiated ego and the primeval wisdom interpenetrating and uniting. Here's a European Renaissance image, and another one. And here is a drawing from a current student. So a modern shamanic individual is one in whom the ego and the primeval wisdom have united. So when the individual has a crisis of the illusory ego, the astral body awakens. This leads to the death of the illusory ego and the rebirth of an initiated ego. And this initiated ego must do the alchemical inner work of taming and transmuting the astral body. And the transmuted astral body unites with the initiated ego to form the higher self. The higher self. This is the ultimate goal of your inner work and the main prerequisite in order to be of shamanic service to culture and humanity. So what happens if we don't use the primeval science of initiation to guide our inner work and initiatory efforts? To answer that, let's have a closer look at the tricky nature of the astral body, and in particular the subtle dangers that always accompany the astral body's awakening process. The onset of the initiatory process is dangerous in general. When your astral body starts to awaken, all the conflicts of opposites, traumas, dark forces, instincts, fears, repressed contents, micropossessions, rebelliousness, inflation, tricksterisms, sorcery, all that the illusory ego was holding in check, come out. And remember, the astral body started to awaken in the first place, likely because of an ego breakdown. So when the astral body first erupts, there's usually a lack of ego formation in place to deal with it, to navigate it. This tends to be a very unstable and vulnerable period of one's life, and it's easy to drown, or at the very least, to go astray. There are some obvious, more severe dangers: mental breakdowns, psychotic episode, paranoia, institutionalization, being misdiagnosed and unhelpfully medicated, possession, getting tangled up in dark magic, getting scapegoated, targeted by darkness in your environment. Further obvious dangers include resurfacing of traumas, intense trauma processing, recovery of repressed memories, inability to sleep, and inability to manage in waking life, mania, volatile mood swings, uncontrollable outbursts, a wide array of health problems. Obvious but less severe dangers include becoming very ungrounded, chaotic, unable to manage in the material world, extremely sensitive in a toxic environment, too spongy and empathic, which can lead to more instability, depression, confusion, and further health problems. But there are other subtle dangers that affect everybody, regardless of the other difficulties you have. These three subtle dangers are inherent in the shamanic calling, inherent in the awakening of the astral body, and they affect everybody equally, regardless of how far along you are. They are inflation, faulty discernment, and inadequate shadow work, or too much. After we dive deeper into these dangers, I will show you solutions to safely navigate them. After I show you these solutions, if you're still here in another 60 minutes, I will pull up a link where you can download a PDF of this entire slideshow presentation. So get ready, because here we go. Subtle danger number 1, inflation. Any shamanic initiation begins more or less the same way. The illusory ego is dismembered. Then the astral body, primeval wisdom, activates, awakens, emerges into consciousness. And this means you're going beyond yourself, beyond the limits of your old, outdated, illusion-filled ego. This is an inherently inflationary stage. Now, why is this a danger? Remember, in order to be an effective shamanic individual, it is necessary for the ego to tame the astral body with its inherent expansive, ecstatic, archetypal nature. But while we are doing the painstaking and arduous work of building our new initiated ego, the astral body is meanwhile going through an explosive expansion and empowerment, often after a lifetime of suppression. So when the archetypes of the collective unconscious begin to speak very loudly through the astral body, it is very difficult to differentiate, much less tame, the primordial power of the archetypes expressing through the astral body. There is a natural magnetic impulse which misidentifies the new initiated ego with the expansive, magical, archetypal nature of the astral body. The new initiated ego must first distinguish itself from the astral body in order to turn back on it and tame it or transmute it as the subject. This is a Herculean task, a great work. The new initiated ego and the expansive astral body inevitably become confused. This almost always takes place at a subconscious level. One can get visions of oneself in which you see yourself in the present or near future, already having attained your far distant goal, your realized higher self, your spiritual destiny. This is actually an invaluable gift meant to propel you toward your self-realization. But it's extremely volatile. Volatile to handle and easily misleading. It is essentially an illusion that fuels inflation. So you need to know the trick, the art and the science of harnessing the inspiration of this illusion without being led astray by it. So what is happening here? You are over-identifying with your untransmuted astral body, mistaking it for your realized higher self. This leads to a cluster of other problems: arrogance, hubris, delusions of grandeur, misfires, especially with regards to the time frame of your spiritual progress. The alchemists warned, all haste comes from the devil. It's easy to over-identify with the mythical archetypes that are coming alive in your astral body: the shaman, the hero, the wounded healer, the wizard, the priestess, the trickster, the culture hero, the initiate, the magician, the king, the queen, the prophet, and mistake these archetypal inspirations for your current level of ego development and the nature of your true I am. This is particularly tricky because it feels great, at least at first, to identify with an archetype and is genuinely empowering. One who is identifying with an archetype becomes more charismatic, inspired, ecstatic, liberated, even a genuine genius. They become endowed with magical powers. It's exhilarating to experience oneself as divine, but this divinity has not yet been consciously and maturely manifested or individuated in the initiated ego. And the incredible amount of hard work to actually manifest and individuate this divinity is the opposite of exhilarating. It's intimidating, at times discouraging, even excruciating. It requires you to look very squarely at all your flaws, many of which you don't even realize you have, and actually transform them into virtues. The astral body contains your true higher self as a germ, but it's not yet realized. The initiated ego has to do alchemical inner work to manifest the higher self. The ego can only legitimately identify with the aspects of the higher self that have already been manifested, not the parts that are still in potential. So the astral body gives you a vision of your potential for archetypal realization, your goal, but it's so easy to confuse the goal with where you're at right now. You identify with the inflated, archetypally empowered state of your astral body, thinking it's your divine I am, when really it's the hubristic dragon shadow of your higher self. This is a danger at every stage on the path, because we will always have new goals, new inspirations. In other words, an effective shamanic individual can never stop working to remain aware of this danger. So inflation is an innate and ever-persistent hazard on the path, and for this reason, any true elder, regardless of the tradition, inspires humility in the souls of the aspirant as a first measure of protection. Inflation is a particular danger with improper, unguided use of entheogens like mushrooms, ayahuasca, LSD. It's what happens when there's not enough diligent integration work afterward. So by integration, I mean the reforming of an initiated ego operating effectively in the day-to-day. So do you know anybody who has had a paradigm-shifting enlightenment experience on LSD or mushrooms or ayahuasca and said something like, I realized I was God. I was one with the universe. I realized we are all one. I realized that there is no me. Self is an illusion. I was pure light. I understood everything. But after this most profound experience, they either went back to their old self or else became unhinged, ungrounded, and had serious difficulties actually manifesting the fruits of these epiphanies. Hopefully you do know people, perhaps even yourself, whose lives have been profoundly changed for the better from a single entheogenic revelation or series of revelations. But if one's life has been permanently changed for the better, that is inevitably the result of the epiphany working with the hard work of the ego to integrate it. And this leads to the formation of an initiated ego. Entheogens are immensely powerful and divine shamanic tools and teachers that radically stimulate the initiation and the healing process, but they should be used within the context of a science of initiation. Without the science of initiation, one can fall headlong into pathological inflation or worse. But the danger is not always in grandiose inflation. The opposite can also happen. You over-identify with the shadows that are lurking in your astral body and convince yourself that you're not good enough, not worthy, will never be good enough, etc. This negative inflation can cause considerable torment, fear, crippling self-doubt, confusion, paralyzing discouragement, depression, even suicidal impulses. So here is the way forward. The archetypal forces of expansion of consciousness come from outside the limits of your ego, but your ego has to somehow assimilate these archetypal forces in order to manifest them properly in the world. The mythological symbol for this is the hero, slaying the dragon and drinking its blood to gain its powers. It's a drawing from Carl Jung again. Or, seizing the treasure the dragon is hoarding. Because the idea is not to kill the dragon, rather to tame it and assimilate its archetypal powers into your ego individuality, so that your ego can be empowered by it without being destroyed by it. These are both from Carl Jung in the Red Book. And you can see on the right, the blood has been assimilated into the individuality and is now animating it, empowering it, filling it with spiritual force and light and fire and life. This is the initiated ego that has gained power over the dragon nature of the astral body, is strong enough to not get dominated by it, but can still channel and focus the archetypal inspiration that comes from it. Remember, this confusion of the initiated ego and the expanding astral body almost always takes place at a subconscious level and undermines your spiritual progress in subtle ways that you might never detect were it not for your best friends, trickster familiars, and enemies who oblige you to study your blind spots. You need to actively root out this passive identification, this subconscious inflation. You need to clearly differentiate between your initiated ego and the archetypal impulses of your soul, which are the building blocks of the initiated ego, but not the initiated ego itself. How do you do this? I will show you after the other two dangers. Subtle danger number 2, faulty discernment. Faulty discernment can manifest as self-deception, unwise decisions, snap judgments, inaccurate conclusions, rushed attempts, and many other types of erroneous, self-defeating behavior. In serious cases, it can put you or others in danger. It's hard to know true reality from the version of it you are constantly co-creating in the cherished secret world of your imagination. Your imagination is a divine mirror, the reflection of the astral world through yourself, a reflection of your own astral body. Working with your imagination and also working with your dreams is how you can actually study and transform your own astral body. When the initiatory or shamanic calling arrives and the astral body awakens, one's imagination invariably explodes into vivid life. One awakens to the mythical realm of consciousness, and you experience your own psyche as though it were mythical territory. Your daily life becomes a living myth, full of magic, synchronicity, and archetypal drama. The mythical archetypal drama that plays out is simultaneously a revelation of humanity's collective unconscious and your personal guiding myth unfolding from your unique soul. But this is dangerous territory. It's easy to get burned in the fire of the archetypes. It's easy to drown in the sea of the mythical imagination. It's easy to get stuck in the dragon's belly, possessed by the Ouroboros, the serpent that eats its own tail. It's easy to become pathologically self-absorbed. And instead of forging a map, you get lost. Instead of developing clairvoyance, you become blind, because all your perceptions become filtered through an egocentric delusion. In other words, Ouroboros possession, or what I like to call philosophical mercury poisoning. But the shamanic initiation process requires you to actually live out your guiding myth. Your personal guiding myth is utterly precious spiritual guidance for your astral body's process of awakening and getting sorted out. It's a narrative of your illusory ego's transformation into an initiated ego, and further, your initiated ego's heroic efforts to manifest your higher self. And in order for your guiding myth to unfold properly, you need to co-create it. Co-create it by putting your personal ego stamp on the emerging archetypes and individuating the archetypes. Like a blacksmith, your ego must enter into the furnace of the archetypal imagination and forge your personal guiding myth. You have to tame the dragon within yourself and assimilate its archetypal power to retrieve the boon in order for your initiated heroic ego to emerge from the initiatory journey. And in this process of shamanic initiation, you will certainly have to approach the threshold to the spiritual world. And problems of discernment almost always come from approaching the threshold to the spiritual world improperly, unprepared, untrained. It's essential to understand that there is an archetypal threshold guardian that acts as a shadow mirror, which reflects your own subconscious back to you, showing you what you need to work on in yourself before you are permitted to pass into higher realms. And if you don't handle this threshold guardian in the right way, you can either be blocked or else permitted to enter a false, illusory, counterfeit heaven. It's easy to mistake this reflection of our own subconscious for what we think is the spiritual world and the entities of the spiritual world. So you can confuse your own reflected subconscious fragments for external entities. Because of the fact that the astral body is reflected in the imagination, one can have vivid experiences of getting attacked by demons and tormented and chased. And this is actually experienced as foreign spirits attacking you from the outside. So you end up perceiving your own shadow fragments that need to be integrated as hostile entities that you distance yourself from. Now, there is a spirit world out there, outside of your soul, of which you are just one citizen amongst innumerable sentient beings. But in order to experience it without delusion, you really need to purify and illuminate your astral body as the medium of spiritual perception. Because the condition of your astral body will determine the way in which you perceive and encounter the outer spiritual world. As a rule, what's inside of you calls forth a reflection from the outer spiritual world. So if you have not done a significant amount of work on your astral body, your subjective and untransmuted soul gets projected out. And what is reflected back to you appears as a confirmation of what is actually an illusory projection. Your subjective inner state appears as objective spiritual reality. This causes a major distortion in the development of your shamanic clairvoyance and can lead to dangerous and magically charged projections that actually conjure your subconscious shadows further into manifestation. These conjured shadows can take on a life of their own and inflict harm on yourself and others without your permission or even without your awareness. Remember, the astral realm is both within yourself and out there, outside yourself. And in both places, in you and outside of you, it contains both light and dark, good and evil, truth and deception. You can have vivid and profound experiences with ascended masters and angels and archangels who are actually highly evolved trickster entities with shape-shifting powers. These shapeshifters put on a false angelic appearance, surrounding themselves in a false spiritual light, and give you mostly true spiritual teachings and visions that lead you astray in very subtle but ultimately harmful ways. They are false guides who conduct you into false heavens, and these false heavens are beautiful but false, and false ascension programs that are tainted by hubris and spiritual vanity. They use your own blind spots, vanity, ambition, pride, arrogance, to weave a false picture of your higher self that is compelling but untrue and distorted by subtle degrees. They have this very special clairvoyant ability. They can see your blind spots better than you can see them. And they weave your blind spots into a tantalizing, tempting picture that is partially true because it's also woven out of your higher self. And if you fall for it, you start to identify your initiated ego with that diabolical distortion masquerading as your true I am. And to complicate the trap even more, these entities can grant charismatic, clairvoyant, shamanic powers. You think these magical powers are coming from your higher self, so you accept it, and it's an intoxicating feeling. These deceptive and seductive trickster spirits live at the threshold to the higher spiritual realms. They are the guardians of the crossroads. And you have to face them and pass through them in the archetypal initiation journey. And you can encounter them within yourself, or you can encounter them embodied in another person, in a sorcerer, in a charlatan shaman who offers to be your initiating mentor, or even in a charismatic lover. But within the science of initiation, these tricksters can be regarded as a blessing because they teach us how to be truly humble, how to discern truth from untruth, and they stimulate crucial shadow work. If you have the keys of undeception, the keys of truth, these personal tricksters can become very powerful shamanic allies. Now, granted, this is extremely hard, but ultimately what every shamanic individual must do. I will show you how you can improve your discernment after we cover the next subtle danger. Subtle danger number 3, inadequate shadow work. No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Carl Gustav Jung. It's very simple. Your soul is a tree. In order to grow strong and tall, your roots must grow strong and deep. And in order to grow your roots strong and deep, you must become conscious of all that lies hidden beneath in the subterranean realm of your soul. In this way, the above and the below become united within you. Through this process, your higher self is forged. Doing your shadow work means transforming the unconscious and darkened parts of your astral body into conscious, illuminated parts of your initiated ego. The building blocks for your initiated ego are found in the shadows of your astral body. You need to make the shamanic, heroic journey into your shadows to retrieve these building blocks, clean them up, heal them, and integrate them into your conscious I am. But shadow work is super tricky because the shadow always hides. With each new increment of growth of your initiated ego, there is a new increment of shadow that must be integrated. That is why shadow work is never over. Shadow work is inseparable from personal growth. Because the shadow is always hiding, always attempting to evade the ego's grasp, you need to find a way to catch it and illuminate it. If you don't manage to catch and transform this elusive shadow, first of all, the shadows that are fragmented from your ego's consciousness automatically get projected onto others who resonate with the material you're suppressing or simply failing to acknowledge in yourself. The darkness, flaws, shameful psychic contents, and even the evil genuinely seems to emanate from outside yourself. And instead of doing the hard work of pulling it back into yourself, illuminating it in yourself, you do the opposite. You divorce yourself from it, renounce taking responsibility for it, and even judge and persecute the person onto whom you have projected. Shadow projection can lead to confusion, fixation, obsession, scapegoating, hatred, judgment, righteous persecution, all the way to extremes of murder and genocide. At the very least, it acts like a veritable and persistent devil on your spiritual path, continuously blocking or sabotaging your progress, leading to delusions or worse. Inadequate shadow work has a whole cluster of negative consequences in addition to projection. Fragmentation between your ego and your astral body, between the light and the dark parts of your astral body, and between yourself and others. Negative magnetism. You will unconsciously attract people into your life who resonate with the hidden shadows within you. You will unconsciously be guided also toward situations in the outer world that likewise resonate with your unexamined shadows. blocked by the threshold guardian, where you can't tell the difference between the objective spiritual world and the subjective world of imagination, fantasy, and projected soul content. So you can't reliably or effectively work in the astral realm as a shamanic individual. You'll lack the very basis upon which all discernment rests. You will lack the levels of humility, integrity, truthfulness that are essential for authentic shamanic work, because the undermining impulses of arrogance, fragmentation, and self-deception are still there, hiding there in the shadows. And the most gifted among you, don't be fooled. As bright as your light may be, every light casts a shadow. And the brighter the light, the darker the shadow, and the harder to catch. If you stop short on your shadow work, you can still succeed amazingly, for now, even for decades, as healers, teachers, writers, ceremonialists, charismatic individuals in general. But the hiding shadow, the saboteur, simply lays low for a while and bides its time, letting you get successful, inflated, spiritually egotistical, with a wide following. And then, at the worst possible time, it detonates the sabotaging dynamite, doing maximum damage, harvesting the maximum amount of negative energy from the situation, possibly even destroying what you have spent half your life building. Unilluminated shadows, that is, unallied tricksters, tend to have a sadistic, ironic sense of humor and delight in cruelly punishing hypocrisy. So if you don't truly practice what you preach, beware. Or even if you don't have a dramatic fall, something else can happen. You will succeed, but your body of work will contain the taint of your shadow and will cause future generations to fall into error. As time goes by, your life's work gets further and further hijacked by spirits of untruth, who ultimately pervert and invert your original impulse and corrupt your spiritual legacy. Never forget the golden shadow rule. Just as a child grows into an adult, so too does your initiated ego grow in size, maturity, and capacity. And as it grows, it casts a progressively larger shadow. And as you develop the capacity to embody and radiate more spiritual light, the divine I Am can shine more and more through your personal I Am. But as your personal I Am casts more light, it also casts a progressively darker shadow. So that's how it goes. As your initiated ego grows more mature and more spiritually illuminated, it casts a progressively larger and darker shadow. Shadow work is never over. It must become a constant companion, a lifelong burden that you learn to appreciate as a great blessing and responsibility. And really, if you think about it, the key to true wisdom and to pass the threshold. Perhaps the biggest mistake you can make on the path is to convince yourself that you've already done your shadow work, or that you don't need to do it anymore because you're already in the light. Always remember, your shadow hides from you every step of the way. You must actively hunt it down to illuminate it, and never tire of this effort, and never slack in your diligence. On the other side of the spectrum, you can indulge in shadow work, convincing yourself that you're just getting to know your darkness, that you're comfortable balancing light and dark. That is a reflection of the duality of the cosmos, the duality of the human condition. This results in pathological self-absorption and ineffective alchemy because you fail to transmute your shadow. Instead of the initiated ego illuminating the shadows darken the initiated ego. One forms alliances or romances with unhealed, unilluminated darkness without even realizing it. The path of healing, truth, and the redemption of your shadows cannot be found in merely balancing the light and the dark. That is a subtle deception based on the twisting around of a profound truth. The underworld descent is an initial stage of initiation, not a destination. Ultimately, initiation is oriented toward illumination of your ego and permeating the shadowy depths of your soul with self-knowledge and spiritual light. The light of your consciousness has to actually illuminate, that is, transform the shadows. And that is very hard, painful, and truly humbling work. If this does not happen, the astral body remains fragmented and will not be able to work reliably in the astral realms and will become confused, deluded, and unstable, a loose cannon. At the very least, the ego and the soul's development will be stunted and remain in a state of shamanic immaturity. So shadow work is ongoing and essential in order to evolve past the threshold guardians and to manifest your higher self. So let's review the 3 subtle dangers. Danger number 1, inflation. Over-identifying with your expansive, rebellious, archetypal astral body, confusing ego with archetype, over-identifying with your not yet realized higher self. Danger number 2, faulty discernment, leading to fantasy, confusion, falling for trickster traps, confusing shadow fragments for entities, and mistaking imaginations and proto-visions for pure clairvoyance. And danger number 3, inadequate shadow work, projecting your shadow onto others, remaining unaccountable and fragmented, or indulging in shadow work and falling into sorcery and becoming consumed by darkness. So take a moment to catch your breath. You've just taken a courageous dive. Now, with the boon of the dive in hand, we're going to go up. We're moving to the good news now. So let's just recap. The name of this webinar is The Science of Safely Navigating Your Shamanic Calling. I've set the stage. I've given you the terms and the theories. And we've had a closer look at the tricky pitfalls we can fall into along the path. So now, after this recap, I'm going to show you practical solutions to navigate these pitfalls. So remember the idea of the primeval wisdom, the ancient shamanic gnosis that was once the common inheritance of humanity? It was lost to humanity in general, so the ego could emerge and evolve. But the first stage of the ego's evolution was that of separation and illusion. So the primeval wisdom was lost, and the illusory ego emerged. But now the illusory ego has led to widespread crisis, and humanity is facing the trial of the abyss. The illusory ego is on the verge of dismemberment, and out of this dismemberment, the primeval wisdom is returning to humanity. This primeval wisdom returns to each individual through the soul body, otherwise known as the astral body. An effective shamanic individual must first awaken, transmute, and tame their astral body in order to be a reliable instrument for shamanic work. But in order to transmute the astral body, one must first cultivate an initiated ego, an ego capable of this alchemical, initiatory, transmutational work. Through this initiated ego, the astral body can be awakened, transformed, and illuminated so that it can be a clear channel for the influx of illuminated primeval wisdom. This is the essence and starting point of alchemical shamanic inner work. Then this initiated ego can unite with the transmuted astral body to form a third body, the higher self. Without the alchemical work of the initiated ego working upon the astral body, left to its own primeval dragon nature, tends to swallow the fledgling initiated ego, preventing it from developing properly and leading it into dangers. So let's talk solutions. There's a simple, profound spiritual solution. When I tell you what it is, you'll think, okay, fine, but how do I actually achieve that? So So after I tell you the spiritual solution, I'll go on to tell you the soul science solution that will help you actually achieve it. The simple spiritual solution is love. The divine love and light of creation. It heals all wounds, comforts all pain, unites all opposites, illuminates all darkness, protects against all dangers, and is the fundamental light and life of your I am. So let's reach the spiritual solution of love through the soul science of alchemical inner work. All the problems and subtle dangers we've just covered arise from a basic situation in the psyche. A lack of development of a strong and healthy initiated ego, and lack of effective alchemy performed on the astral body. So our soul science solution is quite simply to develop a strong and healthy initiated ego and to perform effective alchemy on the astral body. If you do this, your initiated ego will unite with your transmuted astral body to birth new increments of your higher self. And through new increments of this higher self, new increments of divine love become manifested, realized, and can radiate outward, touching others. So how can you achieve this through inner work? Remember, there is an art to carrying out this inner work fruitfully, and there is a science to carrying out this inner work fruitfully. And this art and science, developed over centuries and millennia, has been passed down to us through a golden chain of sages, initiates, and shamans. But you need a key to unlock the guiding wisdom of this golden chain of initiatory ancestral wisdom in a way that can flow from the past directly into the present and be immediately useful to your most urgent needs, in a way that's accessible and appropriate for your modernized consciousness, that equips you to face the unique challenges of our current world situation. In other words, you need a modern key to unlock this ancient wisdom in a way that guides your modern shamanic crisis. So I'll give you this modern key. I call it a magic key. Combine the following 4 disciplines into a single approach to inner work: archetypal shamanism, mythology and visionary art, Jungian psychology, and the art and science of alchemy. Guide your inner work with these 4 disciplines working harmoniously together: shamanic initiation, the hero's journey, the individuation process, and the great work. Each of these 4 disciplines approaches the science of initiation in a unique way. But if you combine them together as a unified approach to your initiatory work, they unlock each other's magical power and wisdom and compensate for each other's relative blind spots, so that the result is greater than the sum of the parts. I call this unified body of initiatory guidance modern soul science. This unified body of guidance harmoniously integrates the primeval wisdom of shamanism, the cosmic and nature wisdom of entheogenic spirituality, the esoteric ancestral wisdom of Western alchemy and the mysteries, the timeless creative wisdom of world mythology and visionary art, and the modern analytic wisdom of Jungian psychology, to approach a uniquely modern manifestation of the ancient science of initiation, geared specifically to address the most urgent spiritual needs of your modern shamanic calling. And the starting point for this modern soul science is the concept of the shamanic archetype. So primeval wisdom is analogous to the astral body, as we've covered, but these two are also analogous to the shamanic archetype. The astral body is the messenger of the primeval wisdom to the ego, So likewise, you could say the astral body is the messenger of the shamanic archetype. The shamanic archetype is universal. Remember, a shamanic individual is one who has awakened their own astral body and knows how to work with it, knows how to work upon the astral bodies of others. And every human has an astral body. Therefore, the shamanic archetype is innate in every human. We can all, to some extent, become shamanic individuals. And that is the direction we are heading. A tidal wave of modern shamanic individuals emerging. And this is, I believe, the only hope for humanity. So we can say the primeval wisdom is returning, or the collective astral body is awakening, or the shamanic archetype is activating in the collective unconscious very powerfully right now. And more specifically, the shamanic archetype is activating very powerfully in you. That's what guided you here. But as we've covered, the shamanic archetype is a dragon that your initiated ego must tame and turn into an ally. You must become a dragon tamer. And you must become a dragon rider. Modern soul science gives you both the art and the science of getting a handle on the shamanic archetype. It gives you the art and science of discovering the unique way in which the archetype is seeking to emerge in you through your unique initiated ego. And I've created a powerful tool for you to do this. I'll show you. As you may know, depending on how far you are in the email course, the shamanic archetype can be broken down into 25 distinct facets or faces. Twice born, one who's been initiated. Psychopomp, guide of souls. Storyteller, myth maker, sacred historian, technician of dreamtime, tender of dreams. Explorer and cartographer of immaterial realms. Visionary artist, writer, poet, creative director, sacred musician, singer, dancer, actor, performer, technician of ecstatic trance states, ascetic, Promethean scientist, mathematician, inventor, architect, hermetic magician, alchemist, astrologer, esotericist, wounded healer, clairvoyant, psychic, remote viewer, seer, energy worker, one who has formed alliances, working relationships with spirits, mystically connected to nature, initiated into the darkness of the spiritual world, spiritual warrior, culture hero, light bearer, trickster, sacred clown, holy fool, shapeshifter, adept in mysteries of sexuality, facilitator, master of ceremonies, technician of entheogenic ceremony, traverses the world tree, bridges, mediates opposites, elder. All of you have a unique combination of archetypal facets that are attempting to manifest through you. I call this your personal constellation of the shamanic archetype, your soul signature. Think of this as the unique way you are manifesting the primeval wisdom through your initiated ego. This is your astral body's individual signature. Discovering this individual signature is a major key to developing and strengthening your initiated ego and taming and harnessing your astral body. Even though you probably relate to many, if not all of these 25 facets, you likely have 3 to 6 facets that are central to your soul, central to your purpose, central to the manifestation of your higher self. These 3 to 6 facets combine to form your central nucleus of the archetype. This is where your initiated ego, your astral body, and your higher self all converge. It's the singularity point where your spirit is being birthed, continually birthed into manifestation. Moreover, your central nucleus is further influenced and empowered by numerous other facets. These orbiting facets condition the way in which your central nucleus gets its archetypal energy, and the way in which your nucleus manifests itself outwardly in service to the culture, the way it interfaces with the culture. In Lesson 3 of the email course, Safely Navigating Your Shamanic Calling, you receive a summary of all 25 facets. In Lesson 4, you dive deeply into the first facet, Twice Born. In Lesson 5, you have a chance to dive deeply into one other facet of your choice. This is just the first step to discovering your personal constellation. You need to go deeply into all 25 facets. You need to see how they all relate to one another, how they shape and inspire one another. Much of this self-knowledge is already in you, but it's still lurking in your subconscious, so you cannot be consciously guided by it, consciously empowered by it. Many of these shamanic capacities of these 25 facets are already in you in potential, but they are not being harnessed to their full capacity. Working out your personal constellation allows you to draw on the inspiration and empowerment of the archetypal facets without getting inflated or possessed by them, and without being deceived or deluded about what is happening, who you are, and what you can do. And if you do this work, if you work out your personal constellation of the shamanic archetype, you can really protect yourself against the dangers we just covered. This is like assimilating the dragon's blood, assimilating the dragon's powers without getting swallowed by the dragon. Remember also that much of your soul, and with it your shamanic capacity, remains trapped and fragmented in the past. Working out your personal constellation guides you through a sort of soul retrieval process, retrieving parts of your soul that are still snared in the dim subconscious comprehension of your past, and rebirthing them into a consciously empowered comprehension of your past in the radical present. Working out your personal constellation also guides you through a profound burst of shadow work, transforming shadows into self-knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Because in order to do this work, you need to go back into your past and transform confusion, pain, isolation, trauma into clarity, wisdom, and an inherently healing comprehension of your higher self. Because you see very clearly how it has been guiding you all along, even through your most difficult times. If you work out your personal constellation of the shamanic archetype, you will strengthen and cultivate your initiated ego and perform soul alchemy on your astral body. If you do this soul alchemy, your initiated ego will be empowered and inspired and grounded by the central facets of your astral body, and your astral body will be formed and focused, transmuted and harnessed by the alchemical efforts of your initiated ego. So it's a cyclical process. It's a co-creative process. This will bring about a union of initiated ego and primeval wisdom to birth a new increment of your higher self. And you can actually do this sacred alchemy on your soul with a proven method. You've already started with the 6-lesson email course, Safely Navigating Your Shamanic Calling. But the email course, as I said, is just an introduction to this profound, sacred, and transformational work. There's a way to go much further, to perform a monumental round of alchemical, transmutational work on your initiated ego and your astral body in order to navigate this process of becoming the shamanic individual you are destined to become. After I tell you, I'm going to offer you a PDF of all the slides in this presentation so you can continue to digest the material. Just another 10 minutes now, after I tell you about the Shamanic Archetype Workshop. Modern Soul Science 100, the Shamanic Archetype Workshop. This is where you completely work out your personal constellation, achieve a monumental breakthrough in the task of taming the dragon of your astral body with the sacred art and sacred science of modern alchemy. Actually measure, nail down your unique manifestation of the Shamanic archetype and forge your personal constellation into the form of a sacred mandala. Engage in pioneering soul cartography. Map out the anatomy of your astral body as it works together with your initiated ego to uncover a master symbol of your higher self. Here's the core nucleus, example of a core nucleus surrounded by orbiting facets. So the centerpiece of this workshop is the Shamanic Archetype Workbook. This workbook consists of all 25 facets that you go through in depth, and you get a personal reading, a personal score, a personal constellation on each of the 25. This book is a magical mirror of your soul. And then at the end of it, you tally all your results up, and you follow the instructions to construct your nucleus based on your scores. And then, after you construct your nucleus, you construct your orbits, your orbiting facets. And they charge the nucleus, and depending on their position, they charge the nucleus in certain ways. And this will get you to arrive at your personal constellation. You will have mapped out your personal constellation. And then you translate your personal constellation into your personal mandala. And depending on how creative you want to be, you can go very far with the symbols of your mandala. And this is a magical symbol, a power object for you. Each of these shamanic mandalas was created through the magical effort of the initiated ego working upon the primeval forces of the astral body to create a third thing, a symbol of the higher self. Through this effort, the students simultaneously developed their initiated ego and imbued their astral body with greater consciousness and refined individuality. They have actually manifested a greater increment of their subconscious potential, a greater increment of their higher self. And they have a magical reflection of their shamanic specialization, precisely the kind of shamanic individual they are meant to be. In the process, they've retrieved and tied together wounded fragments of the past with the effort of the present to create a map and a guiding symbol pointing the way to their spiritual destiny. This is a drawing the student did of herself doing her personal constellation. This is what's taking place as she's doing the alchemy. So let's see what people had to say about their experience with the Shamanic Archetype Workshop. With the help of the Shamanic Archetype Workbook, Andrew helped me understand who I am, that I'm not broken, that I have a reason to live. The mandala showed my past, as well as where I should go in the future. Now that I have this knowledge, there is more certainty in my life, and I have been able to make remarkable progress towards my goals. Ashley Wisner. Claire Ellick says, "Before completing the mandala, I felt stuck in my life. I wasn't able to move forward. Even after many years of trying to deal with my traumatic past through various psychological and spiritual healing practices and therapies, I was still plagued by fears of rejection and failure. However, after completing my mandala and sealing my past into vessels, I was finally able to begin to let go of my traumas. Through working on the images for the healing vessels, my creative juices started flowing again. My fears and anxieties have been replaced by anticipation and excitement as I face new challenges." Claire Gerard actually sculpted her mandala, her personal constellation. As I work back through the years, I can see how these threads are at my very core, have always been there. Memories surfaced of mystical visions I had as a child, but had no understanding of. The workbook, and identifying my resonance with the various shamanistic facets, unlocked the gateway to these remembrances of who I am, which means I can at last fully own these ways and use them in a right way. I can sense a new path emerging, uniquely my own, that will also hopefully be of service to others. The Shamanic Archetype Workbook is truly a key to the subconscious and to spirit. Franklin Lavoie. The Shamanic Archetype Workbook broadened my understanding of shamanism and archetypal psychology, and it introduced me to a community of remarkable seekers, engaging on levels both rare and wonderful to encounter. The 25 facets forming the Shamanic Archetype combine the deep roots of ancient wisdom, 25 sturdy limbs to grasp my own nature, and myriad opportunities for creative flowering. Examining my life through this shamanic and alchemical lens has been transformational. Now, this is just the first course of the School of Modern Soul Science. There are another 10 courses that are being offered for a monthly membership of only $25. But before I tell you about the other 10 courses, I want to take a moment and thank you for your attention thus far. So this is the point where you can download a PDF of the entire slideshow so you can continue to digest this potent material. Just click on the chat box to the right of the screen right now, and there you will find the link to download. So just do that right now. I hope the knowledge in this presentation will prove helpful to you on your journey. But for those who want to go further, I invite you to enroll in the School of Modern Soul Science Introductory Curriculum, the Basecamp Curriculum, available for only $25 a month. The Basecamp Curriculum is comprised of 11 courses, drawing from and weaving together the 4 disciplines of archetypal shamanism, Jungian psychology, mythology and visionary art, alchemy, to approach the science of initiation specifically suited for our times. These are video lessons, and they are mobile responsive. Each course includes downloadable audios for the lessons and will also include written transcriptions as they are completed. The Basecamp curriculum consists of the following 11 courses: Modern Soul Science 100, the Shamanic Archetype Workshop. Includes the Shamanic Archetype Workbook, extensive video and written instructions, in-depth lessons on each of the 25 facets, and TA support and personal community and personal engagement. Modern Soul Science 101. What is Modern Soul Science? The complete primer for the school. A survey course introducing each of the major components that will be explored in depth throughout all the other courses. First, get a clear understanding of the main subjects of study: the ego, the astral body, the higher self. Second, comprehend the 4 pillars of the school: archetypal shamanism, Jungian psychology, mythology and visionary art, and alchemy. Establish a foundation for engaging in the alchemy of modern shamanic initiation. Explore nuances of dealing with tricksters, guides, and issues of discernment. This course includes a creative alchemical homework assignment that has the power to forever transform the way you look at your past, understand your past, and relate to your past. A profoundly powerful exercise of spiritual autobiography and soul retrieval. A serious assignment that comes with TA and community support. MSS 102, Soul Tending as a Daily Practice. Teaches you practical alchemy for daily life, how to keep a sacred soul journal, working with your dreams, using active imagination for healing, transformation, and personal development, creativity and therapeutic art, harnessing the mythology of daily life, synchronicities and subtle guidance, relationships and sexuality, shadow work, alchemical magic of the day-to-day, inner work that unlocks the guiding function of the psyche so you can receive and implement what's coming through your subconscious. Practical techniques and daily activities for continually developing your initiated ego and transmuting your astral body. Daily rhythms and short activities to constantly work at manifesting new increments of your higher self. MSS 103, Approaching the Modern Call in the Spirit of Shamanic Psychiatry. Develop a foundation for approaching the onset of initiatory crisis in a truly shamanic scientific way. Establish a basis for shamanic mental health, which champions the formation of a strong and balanced initiated ego and a healed and illuminated astral body. Learn to recognize the signs of a modern shamanic calling, the triggers and the dangers to be aware of in order to safely navigate your own call and help others navigate theirs. Envision the ideal shamanic hospital designed specifically to treat and train shamanic candidates going through initiatory crisis. Check in wounded fragments of your past, soul fragments, into this shamanic hospital and engage in magical soul retrieval work. Go back in time and repair damage done to your soul in those critical early stages of your call when you lacked elderhood and lived in a society that pathologizes shamanism and initiatory crisis as mental illness. Take psychiatric mental health out of the hands of the scientific materialists and put it in the hands of the shaman and healer within you. MSS 104, The Archetypal Shamanic Initiation Narrative. Learn the 7 archetypal stages of any shamanic initiation, regardless of tradition, the path that every shaman must walk. Learn to recognize your own presence in this universal narrative and understand what stages you've already been through and anticipate what awaits you up ahead. Get a map and a compass for this exciting and difficult path. Learn to tell your own initiatory narrative in a clear, concise way. Make a powerful offering to the threshold guardian to obtain a blessing to proceed to the next stage. Strengthen and clarify your initiated ego and bring a new increment of your astral body under your conscious control. Make peace with your past, placing it in a meaningful, redemptive context, and prepare to move forward to a new stage of your initiatory journey. MSS 105, Jung the Elder. An in-depth investigation of Carl Jung as the prototypical modern Western shaman and the first truly modern soul scientist. See why he is the first elder of the school and the key to unlocking the Hermetic lineage for the modern seeker. Learn the magical connection between shamanism, alchemy, psychology, and mythology so you can harness this timeless wisdom to guide your own initiatory journey. Explore the deeper significance of the Red Book, what it means in the context of cultural and spiritual history, and why it is monumentally significant for us as Westerners. Unlock the golden chain of Hermetic wisdom that connects us back from Jung, back through the European alchemists, earlier back to the Gnostics, and even earlier to the great initiates of the mysteries of the ancient world. MSS 106, Personal Myth-Making Workshop. An adventurous alchemical process of diving into your creative subconscious and forging your personal guiding myth. Tap into the magical power of mythology in the world around you and from the depths of your own soul. Forge a narrative transmitted by your higher self that will give you a constant source of spiritual wisdom, guidance, orientation, and encouragement. A narrative that makes sense of your past, clarifies your present, and prepares you for your future. Like the Shamanic Archetype workshop, this workshop is built around the process of creating an actual soul artifact. So by the end of this, you will have a genuine piece of personalized sacred mythology, a permanent guidepost for your journey. Anyone can do this, and everyone benefits from doing this. MSS 107, Revisioning Jungian Psychology for the 21st Century. Carl Jung's psychology was on the vanguard of 20th century thought, and today it remains firmly rooted in the primeval wisdom of the ages. But we're now in the 21st century, and some critical aspects of this psychology need to be revisioned for today's more radical shamanistic generation. Jung was a double agent. He had to sneak his shamanistic alchemical wisdom into the emerging field of psychoanalysis to save it from the abyss of materialism. But we can now speak more explicitly about such things as spirits, entities, the spiritual realms, and magic. Shadow work must take into consideration the role of demons, dark spirits, and magic. The role of psychedelics and entheogens must be duly considered in modern individuation. And individuation is no longer reserved for the second half of life. Every human being is now facing an individuation crisis. We now live in a society full of sorcery and active assaults upon our psyche. Jung's psychology was not intended for such an age of spiritual warfare, nor an age of internet, TV, modern media, smartphones, or social media. Jung's psychology must equip us for inner work during these tumultuous times of widespread shamanic crisis. Discover the ideal balance between Jung's scientific precision, discernment, and discipline, and the mystical shamanic renaissance in which we now find ourselves. MSS 108, Archetypal Approaches to Shamanic Practice. Now that you know your personal constellation of the shamanic archetype, you can further cultivate your personal shamanic practice. Strengthen your understanding of the elements necessary in any and all shamanic practice, archetypal techniques and practices, universal requisites of character, morality, and integrity. Delve into the anatomy of soul retrieval work, variations and applications of soul retrieval work, techniques of soul retrieval work. We will talk about working with your guides, mediumship, and how to navigate the difficult burden of being a mediumistic individual, transforming this burden into a great blessing. Explore the relationship between traditional shamanism, modern shamanism, healing the collective soul, and the spiritual evolutionary crisis of humanity. Excuse me. MSS 109, The Anatomy of Shadow Work. This is an introduction to the science of the difficult work of illuminating your unconscious shadows. We study the facing of the threshold guardian, discerning the difference between your own projected shadows and dark spirits attempting to influence you. Explore techniques for catching the elusive mercurial trickster spirit in the vessel of self-transformation, turning your blind spots and weaknesses into strength, wisdom, and self-knowledge. Work to transform the shadows that hang on your life, your inner world and your outer world, your personal relationships, your sexuality, your marriage, your relationship with the divine feminine and divine masculine. Work to transform blocks into inspiration, antagonism into harmony, darkness into illumination, enemies into allies, ignorance into wisdom. Begin liberating yourself from the traumas of your past and the dark spirits that haunt your psyche and hold you in a state of fragmentation. Begin transforming fragmentation into wholeness and pain into healing. And MSS 110, Ascetic Practices and Spiritual Dietas for Toxic Times. A course for those with a strong spiritual warrior and ascetic facet in their personal constellation. Learn the first steps to spiritual self-defense in a modern urban society, purifying the astral body and strengthening the ego will. Take a complete inventory of all the ways in which your habits and soul diets are weakening your initiated ego and damaging your astral body. Devise your own ascetic practices to heal and purify your soul and give profound strength to the willpower of your initiated ego. Receive support from our TAs and your community so you can better hold yourself accountable. Develop a personalized practice of asceticism that allows you to live effectively and powerfully in the modern world as a source of healing and integrity. Learn disciplines for modern spiritual warriorship in these toxic times. Work toward gaining control of your mind, over your passions, your instincts, and turning your astral body into your faithful ally. Prepare for serious initiatory work, such as entheogenic ceremony. Prepare to work safely with shamanic medicines and plant teachers. Learn secrets and techniques for preserving the healing you've worked so hard to attain. So these are the first 11 courses being offered in the Basecamp curriculum. MSS 100, the Shamanic Archetype Workshop. MSS 101, What is Modern Soul Science? MSS 102, Soul Tending as a Daily Practice. MSS 103, Approaching the Modern Call in the Spirit of Shamanic Psychiatry. MSS 104, The Archetypal Shamanic Initiation Narrative. MSS 105, Jung the Elder. MSS 106, Personal Myth-Making Workshop. MSS 107, Revisioning Jungian Psychology for the 21st Century. MSS 108, Archetypal Approaches to Shamanic Practice. MSS 109, The Anatomy of Shadow Work. And MSS 110, Ascetic Practices and Spiritual Dietas for Toxic Times. Each course comes with a transformative alchemical homework assignment. The Shamanic Archetype Mandala is just the first assignment. Every assignment calls on you to cultivate a new increment of your initiated ego and accomplish another round of healing and alchemical transmutation on your astral body. You will create sacred soul artifacts, each emerging from the depths of your soul, transmitted by your higher self. You don't need to be an artist. You just need to put pencil to paper and listen to your soul. Everybody can do this, and it's profoundly liberating to draw like you used to draw when you were 5 years old. I repeat, everybody can do this. This is where true magic can happen, where you can engage in profound inner work of soul retrieval and self-transformation. Each of these assignments has the potential effect of performing a soul retrieval on yourself. Each one has a profound power to guide your spiritual journey and work toward unifying your psyche. Each assignment is an opportunity to reorganize your psyche so that your ego, soul, and spirit communicate more clearly with each other. Each assignment guides you through a process of retrieving fragments of your astral body, transmuting them, healing them, illuminating them, and uniting them with your conscious I am. Each assignment is an opportunity to transform subconscious potential into new and archetypally charged increments of your initiated ego. Each assignment is an opportunity to heal the past, empower the present, and open the way to the future. If you carry out these assignments sincerely, you are guaranteed to experience profound shifts in your psyche and breakthroughs in your personal alchemy and your quest to know thyself in the deepest sense. Also included in this monthly membership is dedicated TA support, teaching assistant support for your alchemical homework assignments. mobile responsive video lectures, downloadable audios of the lectures so you can listen to them anywhere, and downloadable written transcriptions as they are completed. Now this is particularly special, the community. So right now it's on a private Facebook group. Gradually we will move off Facebook into a more private community. But this is particularly special because it is a global network of kindred souls, all touched by the shamanic archetype. And also included in the monthly membership is monthly Q&A sessions with me. These are live, recorded, archived, and indexed, so you can find what you're looking for quickly. So, how much is this monthly membership? Well, I already told you. But first, understand, this is a special launch. The entire 11-course curriculum is not entirely built yet. You will be piloting it, helping it grow and evolve. So right now, the first 4 courses are launched and available to start. MSS 100, MSS 101, MSS 103, and MSS 104. The 5th and 6th courses are being created now and will launch in early 2019. Soul Tending is a Daily Practice and Jung the Elder. The 7th and 8th will be launched in the middle of 2019. MSS 106, Personal Myth-Making Workshop, and 107, Revisioning Jungian Psychology for the 21st Century. And the last 3 courses will launch at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020. Archetypal Approaches to Shamanic Practice, the Anatomy of Shadow Work, and Ascetic Practices and Spiritual Dietas for Toxic Times. Each course will take you about 2 to 3 months to complete. So it will take you an average of 9 months to complete the first 4 courses that are currently available. By the time you're done, new courses will be available to pilot. So I invite you to embrace the idea of being a piloting student of the Basecamp curriculum. You will play an integral role in the way this program evolves through a positive feedback loop. So come co-create this program with me. When more courses are completed, the membership will go up to $35 a month. When all 11 courses are launched, the membership will go up to $45 a month. But for you, the students who will pilot this program, you can lock in right now and never pay more than $25 a month. You have 30 days to try it out, to see if it lives up to its promise. So for only $25 today, you can access the first semester of courses, and you can get a full refund if you're not completely satisfied. But I have an even better offer for you. In fact, the best offer that is only available to you from now, or just a few moments from now, until the end of the webinar, until the end of the FAQ. This offer is only being made available to you now because you made the sincere effort to attend this webinar and have given it your full attention and have remained until the end. In just a moment, the link to the offer will appear in the chat box to the right and will close when the FAQ has been all answered. After it closes, you'd have to attend the entire webinar all over again to access the same offer. So if you've been inspired by what you've heard so far, and in your gut you trust me as a teacher, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get a lifetime membership to the entire Basecamp curriculum. Before I tell you the cost of the lifetime membership, consider the total value of this curriculum. Each of the 11 courses on its own is worth a minimum of $150. So all 11 courses times $150 each equals $1,650 of total value. And consider also that each course will take you an average of 2 to 3 months to complete. So 2 to 3 months times 11 courses equals 22 to 33 months. So an average of 2.5 years. So at $25 a month, your investment over 22 to 33 months would be approximately $700, between $550 and $825. But right now, you can get a lifetime membership to the entire Basecamp curriculum for a one-time investment of only $275, or 2 payments of $150. So think about that. The total value of the curriculum is $1,650. And if you're paying only $25 a month, you'll end up spending approximately $700 over 28 months. But if you act now and take the plunge, you can have lifetime access to the Basecamp curriculum for the equivalent of only 11 monthly payments. And remember, you have 30 days to get a full refund if you're not completely satisfied with it. This offer will not be available after this webinar is over. It's a special offer to those of you who are here listening, who are touched by the session, who know a precious opportunity when you see one, and take the leap of faith to grab it. So for a one-time investment of $275 or 2 installments of $150, you will have lifetime access, including all content upgrades, to the Shamanic Archetype Workshop, What is Modern Soul Science, Soul Tending as a Daily Practice, Approaching the Modern Call in the Spirit of Shamanic Psychiatry, the Archetypal Shamanic Initiation Narrative, Jung the Elder, the Personal Myth-Making Workshop, Revisioning Jungian Psychology for the 21st Century, Archetypal Approaches to Shamanic Practice, The Anatomy of Shadow Work, and Ascetic Practices and Spiritual Dietas for Toxic Times. $1,650 of total value with an average investment of $700. That's 28 monthly payments of $25. So let's say you enroll for $25 a month. And after, let's say, 12 months, you've already paid $300. And you've only had the time to complete the first few courses. And for whatever reason, you have to cancel your membership. You will lose access to all the other courses. So this webinar-only offer of lifetime access is really the best deal, by far. And with the 30-day refund policy, there's no risk to go for it now. So just click on the link in the chat box and take the step forward. Each course includes a transformative alchemical homework assignment with the power to profoundly shift your entire psyche. Dedicated TA support for these alchemical assignments, private Facebook community, which is a global network of spiritual brothers and sisters, a tribe of souls, all touched by the Shamanic archetype, which is priceless. And monthly Q&A sessions with me, which are live, recorded, archived, and indexed. But you have to act now to get this offer. You have to click on the link in the chat box to the right and enroll in the program before the FAQs are all answered. So, if this has been a satisfying dive for you, go further. You have 30 days to see for yourself. So, I invite you now to take a step past the threshold and become a piloting student of the Basecamp curriculum. The choice is now before you. So, let your soul be your guide. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and attention. So I hope this has been a worthwhile experience. I will now answer the most frequently asked questions for the next 30 minutes or so. The webinar-only offer will end when the FAQ ends. So one last reminder, you can get lifetime membership for $275 right now, or 2 payments of $150. Or you can lock in for $25 a month before it goes up to $35 a month in 2019. So just click on the link in the chat box. It will take you to the checkout. So these FAQs are going to be read, and they're going to be read from the Basecamp curriculum FAQ section. So I'm going to now go to the Basecamp curriculum sales page and read them, because I've taken up quite a lot of time already, and I have a tendency to go on flows, and if I don't read them, then the FAQ will be another hour, most likely. So I'm going to read them. So there's 4 categories. The immediate practical concerns. Is this a good fit for me? What if I have blocks, fears, or doubts? And long-term practical concerns. So the immediate practical concerns. What is the tuition currency? And what about sales taxes? Well, the membership tuition is in USD, and your own country's sales taxes apply. So for example, if you live in Canada, you will also pay HST. But if you live in the European Union, you will pay the VAT. I've got a lot going on right now. What is the time commitment? Well, that's entirely up to you. You can take the curriculum at your own pace, as your lifestyle permits. You can work through the lessons slowly when you can squeeze them in, or you can dive in and go through the course in a couple days if that's all you're going to do in those days. The lessons average about 10 minutes, and they can be watched on your mobile phone. So you can take in a lesson in a variety of circumstances. The alchemical homework assignments vary in their time commitment. The MSS 102, for MSS 102, the soul tending as a daily practice, the activities are very short and can be done on a daily basis with tangible benefits, even if you have a hectic life with virtually no free time. Other assignments like the Shamanic archetype personal mandala require you to set aside a block of time for creative inner work. So I would say there's a minimum of 1 hour of time required per week, and there is no maximum limit. And if you're going through a particularly busy period, you can pause your progress through the curriculum. That brings me to, what if I fall behind? What if I need a break? The alchemical assignments unfold according to a recommended time frame. This time frame is pitched for those people who have 2 to 4 hours a week to work on this material. But life happens. Life definitely happens, especially for people drawn to this material. And you have all the power to determine your own time frame. If you fall behind the recommended time frame for the assignments, don't worry. You will receive lots of email support to readjust and stay on track. And you can also choose to pause this email support for any amount of time that you determine. We will continue to check in with you and help you resume your progress, if you wish. Please note, however, that in order to keep your lower piloting rate, you will need to remain subscribed. If you pause your payments and resume when the tuition has gone up, you will not be eligible for your original tuition. If you are going through a particularly busy period or hectic period and do not have as much time as you wish, or no time at all, to watch the lectures and or work on the assignments, you can opt for a low maintenance, keep your foot in the door option and focus on the short daily soul tending practices as outlined in MSS 102. What kind of support will I receive? You will receive dedicated support from the school's teaching assistants who interface with the students on the private Facebook group. They will answer the majority of your questions and receive submissions of your work. You will also receive lots of support from your community, from your fellow students in the private Facebook group. If you're not on Facebook, don't worry. You'll receive regular emails from me helping you stay connected to the curriculum and progressing in a fruitful alchemical manner. If you find yourself stuck or somehow psychologically blocked on your progress, you can request, and this is really awesome, you can request a block busting session from our block busting team who specializes in, well, busting blocks. I personally am very rarely, if ever, on Facebook myself, but I am reachable by email. I cannot give a lot of individual attention to each student as that would very quickly become unmanageable, but the TAs pass on communications to me, including emergency questions and requests, as well as outstanding, and by that I mean heartfelt, soulful, and powerful, assignment submissions. The main direct point of contact between me and you will be the monthly Q&A sessions, which go on as long as they need to and are always recorded, archived, and indexed. How long are the lessons? How long are the courses? The lessons average about 10 minutes. A few lessons are longer, from 20 to 30 minutes. As the curriculum develops and continues to unfold, I will aim to keep the lessons below 10 minutes. The courses range from about 7 to 14 hours worth of lessons. If I watch on my phone, will this eat up all my data? When I first launched the school, I saved all the lessons in HD, but through student feedback, I came to understand that many students were actually taking in lessons on their mobile phones, and the HD format was using up all their data. Since then, I've reformatted all the lessons to a lower resolution so they take up considerably less data. So no, the video lessons won't eat up all your data, and the audio downloads, which you will also have, are even smaller and can be listened to with no data at all. So the next category of FAQ, is this a good fit for me? So I'm new to all of this. Will I be able to understand the material? While this material draws on ancient and arcane wisdom, it was not written for the While this material draws on ancient and arcane wisdom that was not written for the modern soul, it has been intentionally woven together and presented in a way to make it as accessible as possible for those individuals looking for it and needing it. To make the esoteric subject matter accessible, it is written primarily in a psychological language that is easy to relate to your personal experiences, regardless of where you're coming from. If you have a sincere interest in your spiritual development, a willingness to do the work and ask questions, you will be able to understand and benefit from this no matter where you're starting from. Speaking of that, I've been seriously engaged in a shamanic path for quite some time already. Will I be too advanced for this curriculum, this, quote, introductory curriculum? There is no finish line to the work of self-knowledge and self-development. If you have already been sincerely doing this work for any period of time, you will benefit even more from this curriculum presented in this way. There are already some very experienced students in the school who have studied for decades with numerous renowned spiritual teachers, healers, shamans, who feel that they have finally found a key piece of the puzzle that's always been missing from their previous work. Here's a good question. Where does this knowledge come from? It comes from me, Andrew Camargo. So that raises the question, where did I get this knowledge from? Well, I got this knowledge from a few sources, which I will tell you now. First, from Carl Gustav Jung, whom I studied both on my own and also in graduate school. Second, from the Rosicrucian alchemists who thrived in Central Europe between approximately 1450 and 1700 AD. Third, from Rudolf Steiner. Fourth, from my initiatory work in the Santo Daime, and my direct experiences with the entheogenic teacher at the heart of this tradition. Fifth, from my elders in the Santo Daime tradition, in particular my main elder, Padrino Sebastião, and his family. Sixth, from my own visions, shamanic journeys, active imaginations, dreams, experiences in the spiritual realms, and from the teachings of a number of plant teachers, including ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, cannabis, hapé, and others. In other words, from my own, quote, shamanic gnosis over the last 2 decades. And seventh, from my higher self, which cobbled together the above 6 sources of knowledge and birthed them into a new synthesis in the form of the School of Modern Soul Science. I am a practitioner of, insert religion here. How does this realm of study relate to my own lineage? Well, the materials for this course and all courses at the School of Modern Soul Science come from the synthesis of 4 lineages of knowledge: archetypal shamanism, Jungian psychology, European alchemy, and creative mythology. There are religious denominations of the world that do not find these esoteric realms of study to be forbidden, and there are others that do. This is something only you can determine for yourself. Much depends on whether you are attuned to the esoteric dimension of your faith. This curriculum draws on the wisdom of the Hermetic lineage, which is fundamentally esoteric, intercultural, transcultural, and transepochal. In other words, this program of study is drawn from the perennial tradition, the thread of esoteric wisdom that weaves through all religions. Now here's a doozy. I'm a Christian. Could this be considered witchcraft? Or, I'm a pagan. Could this be considered Christian? Everything taught in the School of Modern Soul Science is aligned with the teachings of Rosicrucian alchemy, which is a hermetic amalgam of Gnostic Christian impulses and pagan shamanic mystery wisdom. It works to restore the pagan impulse to Christian gnosis and restore the Christ impulse to pagan gnosis. If you are a conservative Christian who is not open to more esoteric Gnostic streams of spirituality, you will likely condemn this as witchcraft. But if you're the kind of Christian who understands that the spirit world is quite real and that there are many sorts of spirits out there, and you can see the presence of both a god and a goddess in the face of nature, and you believe that God lives in the I am of our innermost being, you might find this program to be a great inspiration for your spiritual development. If you are oriented toward pagan spirituality and, quite understandably, have a particular objection to churchianity, trust that you will find no churchianity in this program. But you will find genuine Christian impulses to the extent that Christ is understood as the embodiment of the divine I am, which is what you are striving for in your spiritual development. I study New Age teachings. How will this program relate? If you are thoroughly steeped in New Age teachings, this program may challenge some of your assumptions and the accuracy of some of the beliefs that you take for granted. It may involve more shadow work than you are comfortable or used to doing. But these challenges will inspire you to look closely at your beliefs and see what they are actually founded on. The purpose of this curriculum is to guide you into a descent to your innermost being. While you may certainly ascend to greater heights of selfhood, the orientation of this curriculum is not simply ascending. One must go down into the depths before one can truly go up to a higher realm and remain there, free of fantasy. I'm a shaman. What will I learn that will help me develop myself further? If you're in the habit of referring to yourself as a shaman, this program will not work for you as well as it would if you considered yourself still an apprentice with much to learn. Generally speaking, the more knowledge and spiritual power one presumes to have, the less receptive one is to new sources of wisdom. Will this program help me heal? While I cannot guarantee healing, I can certainly say that all the work you do in this program is inherently healing by nature, because it is always working toward unifying previously fragmented parts of your psyche. The guiding spirit of this school is the unification of opposites. So all the inner work you will do will bring together your conscious psyche and your unconscious psyche into a more harmonious relationship, and this has an inherently healing effect. All the alchemical assignments are, in one way or another, opportunities for you to do soul retrieval work. While the lectures and your peers may help you heal on this journey, it's ultimately you who must become your own healer, and the coursework will give you ample opportunity to do that. Moreover, you will find the approach to archetypal shamanism innately healing, because it will provide you with a clear framework with which you can look back on your past and reframe it in a new, clear, and completely empowering way that makes sense of experiences that may have been, up until now, bewildering, seemingly senseless, and traumatic. What benefits can I expect? Greater self-knowledge. Your ego's consciousness will penetrate more deeply into your previously subconscious realms, and the subconscious contents will become new parts of your conscious I am. This results in more vigor, balance, inner peace. Greater wholeness. You can expect to do a lot of soul retrieval work through the alchemical assignments, and this will have a wide array of profound benefits. Transformation. You can expect to undergo a profound transformative journey through the curriculum, moving always closer to manifesting greater increments of your higher self. Adjustment and greater spiritualization of your ego. Your ego, contrary to New Age truism, is not something that you can or should get rid of. Quite the opposite. You must spiritualize it, as you should know by now from this lengthy webinar training. because it has a very, very important role. It is meant to be the bearer of your divine I Am, the vessel in which your higher self actually incarnates. Through this curriculum, you will put your ego into the alchemical furnace so that it can evolve and become a faithful servant of your higher self. You can expect to have a much clearer sense of your purpose, your vocation, your shamanic specialization, and what it means to be a shamanic individual in the world today. You can expect to get much more clarity on the next steps of your spiritual journey. You can expect to make powerful new friendships. You can expect to tap into a vast lineage of ancestral wisdom through the lineage of alchemy. And you can expect to learn ancient knowledge in a modern way and apply ancient wisdom to your modern situation in the world. Is this a mystery school? Does it include ceremonial work? While the teachings of the school draw on the mystery traditions throughout the ages, this is not a mystery school, and I would caution you to not entirely trust any institution that claims to be a mystery school, even a modern one. A true mystery school is a school of entheogenic initiation. In ancient Egypt, Greece, and elsewhere, the mystery schools rigorously prepared candidates for their initiation, and in the initiation itself, the candidate was required to ingest a powerful entheogenic sacrament, which brought them into direct contact with the higher spiritual realms and the mysteries contained therein. Today, there are many institutions claiming to be modern mystery schools. These schools certainly derive their teachings from lineages that originate from true mystery schools, but they are not themselves actual mystery schools in the traditional sense. The School of Modern Soul Science does not lead people through entheogenic initiation ceremonies, although it does provide an education that would make for ideal preparation for entheogenic work. Nor are non-entheogenic ceremonies integral parts of the curriculum. In other words, you don't need to participate in any ritual or ceremony in order to progress through the curriculum. You will be guided through inner work and will be expected to engage in psycho-spiritual development in order to progress through the curriculum. You will also be encouraged to create your own rituals of soul work and to bring any ceremonial work you do, on your own or with whatever group you choose, into the alchemical vessel of your work in the school. If you are called to seek out entheogenic initiation in certain spiritual lineages, the School of Modern Soul Science will be an invaluable source of guidance, only insofar as it offers you universally applicable tools and an archetypal science of initiation that will help you orient yourself, understand what is actually happening, and develop greater discernment, so as to not get deceived and fall into an undesirable predicament for your soul. Entheogens are an integral part of my studies, seeking, and spirituality. How does the school fit with that? Or, entheogens are not part of my studies, seeking, and spirituality. How does the school fit with that? The School of Modern Soul Science draws on entheogenic lineages of wisdom, but the teachings offered in the school are universal in their applicability to the human quest for evolution, healing, and the cultivation and manifestation of our divine nature. If you were to trace the teachings back to their source, you would find entheogenic traditions. Excuse me. But you could say the same thing about virtually every religion on earth and virtually every civilization on earth. Those who are educated in the role of entheogens in human history understand the central role that entheogens have played in the mysteries of all civilizations. And those educated in the role of the mysteries of human history understand that the mysteries are the fountainhead of all culture and all civilization. But despite the entheogenic source of knowledge in this school, its teachings are equally applicable to those following decidedly non-entheogenic paths. That is because the teachings are fundamentally universal, fundamentally archetypal in nature. Every human has a soul. Every human has an astral body. And the science of the astral body is universal. If you are committed to an entheogenic spiritual path, you will find the teachings contained in this school to be extremely helpful to you, both as ideal preparatory work for serious dive into entheogenic initiation, and as ideal ongoing supplementary support for long-term entheogenic study. If your spiritual path is not entheogenic, you will find just as much value in this curriculum. The alchemical homework assignments will be just as effective, transformative, and beneficial, and the science of the astral body will apply equally to your development and will yield good fruits if you apply this science to your own soul work. Jungian psychology is a good example of this same thing. If you trace the lineage of wisdom back, you will find entheogenic origins. However, the teachings are most certainly archetypal and profoundly beneficial to anybody serious about inner work, regardless of their methods and techniques for engaging in it: dreams, imagination, creativity, or ingesting entheogenic agents. Typo there. The teachings of Jungian psychology are very useful to Westerners engaged in entheogenic study, and as anybody who has undergone Jungian analysis can attest, the teachings and methods are also extremely powerful for those working with dreams, imagination, and psychotherapy in general. So, long story short, the School of Modern Soul Science is unique in that it offers teachings that are valuable to both groups, those on a decidedly entheogenic path and those on a decidedly non-entheogenic path. So the third category of FAQ: what if I have blocks, fears, and doubts? And speaking of blocks, fears, and doubts, I'll remind you that the webinar-only opportunity is still open, but it's getting close to the end now. So, if you have any blocks, fears, or doubts, listen up. I want to do this, but I'm afraid. What can I do? It's natural to be afraid and to be expected. This school is calling on you to embark on profound inner work and even profound self-healing work. Right before you embark on such a journey, all the negative forces, fear, self-doubt, and skepticism, rear their ugly heads and scream out in an attempt to thwart you, discourage you, and prevent you from taking the decisive step forward. It is necessary to overpower these retarding forces through an act of courage, an act of faith in yourself, an act of trust. These forces are there to act as threshold guardians, to ensure that you do not proceed until you are actually able to summon the courage and inner force needed to move forward. Know that you will be very supported in this journey. The curriculum itself is your main support. If you follow the curriculum, it will act like a treasure map, leading you always closer and closer to the goal. In addition to that, you will have support from your teacher, from me, and from your fellow students who can relate to what you're going through and who will have lots and lots of compassion and love to share with you. Additionally, you will have the support of the TAs and the block-busting team if you are willing but unable to progress. Healing and transformation is hard. Part of you needs to die before you can transform, before you can experience a rebirth to a higher state of being. If you are feeling fear, it's because a part of you does not want to let go, does not want to die, so that something higher can be born. This is natural, but is also going to hold you back if you remain in this state. This program is meant to provide you with wise, compassionate, truthful, and trustworthy guidance as you go through a personal transformation process. It will offer you the tools you need, but only you can summon the necessary courage to take the leap into the unknown and win a victory there. What if I have weak willpower and I am not diligent at following through on things? I should have worded that in the past. What if in the past I have had weak willpower and I have not been diligent at following through on things? You don't want to condemn yourself in the present. Better change that. First of all, it is necessary for you to understand why you have had weak willpower in the past and difficulty in following through on things that you have started. The reason is simple: soul loss, soul fragmentation. Your conscious ego, your I am, is not effectively connected to your subconscious psyche, which is the source of your mojo. Through the alchemical assignments, you will undergo a transformational experience that will realign your ego and your subconscious psyche and create a greater connection of inspiration and vigor. The alchemical assignments are fundamentally about soul retrieval and integrating previously fragmented parts of your psyche into a new wholeness, As you do this work, you'll have an opportunity to rediscover that mojo that you lost or perhaps never had, because it will grow out of the inner work that you do. But the paradox is that in order to do this soul retrieval work that has the potential to invigorate your willpower, you need to summon an initial burst of willpower to embark on the alchemical process and sustain a minimal amount of willpower to remain in the fruitful alchemical process. And this must come from you. Nobody can force you to do your own personal spiritual self-study work, nor should they. This requires your willing, voluntary participation every step of the way if you hope to get anything out of it. That being said, you'll have real support and accountability to do the work, if you want. The community of students already doing this work and bearing magical fruits is growing by the day. There are senior students and TAs who have already worked through the first semester of the curriculum and know where the challenges lay and how to best overcome them. If you take advantage of the support structures available to you, you will have a good chance to finally overcome the forces that oppose your spiritual progress. Shadow work is an integral part of the foundational 100 level of the school. But don't worry, the Basecamp curriculum is the golden thread that guides you to the front door of your blocks. But if you keep following the thread, it will guide you past them to the breakthrough into a new stage of self-realization. How will I know if I'm ready for this work? Are you feeling strongly called to this work after reading up to this point? Do you feel more excitement and enthusiasm than fear, apprehension, avoidance, and doubt? Here's another question I'm going to improvise. Are you still listening? If you're still listening to this webinar after 2.5 plus hours, what does that tell you? So after reading everything on this page or listening to everything I've said in this epic webinar presentation, either you feel something deep within you calling you forward, or you don't. You may still have hesitations about what you're signing up for. This is normal. It's a good indication that you take the subject matter seriously, as you should. It's serious work meant for serious times. But if you sincerely desire to unravel the mystery that says I am, so that you can serve humanity with your unique spiritual gifts, and this sincere desire is ultimately greater than your resistance, you are ready to get started with this work, and you should enroll in the Basecamp curriculum immediately. Immediately. Click on the link to the right, and I would recommend getting the best deal, which is the lifetime membership. There are creative components to this program, and I am not a creative, artistic person at all. Can I still complete the alchemical assignments? Yes, certainly, yes. The alchemical assignments require you to draw. Every child knows how to do this. As an adult, perhaps you've forgotten, but this program will help you remember. The creative soul work you do does not have to be pretty. It just has to be authentic in order to be effective. The hardest part is just starting. Once you put pencil to paper and stop judging yourself according to aesthetic principles, the magic quickly and powerfully unfolds. I have personally seen a number of students who come into this program claiming to have zero artistic talent, only to discover that once they start, a powerful flood of images pours out of their hand, and out of their head, and out of their soul. And they themselves, truly, are mesmerized by the result. The creative assignments in this program are magical, and you should not underestimate what will come out of you once you break through that initial barrier. Due to the nature of the inner work, the best drawings tend to be raw and crude. If it weren't for the serious and oftentimes heavy subject matter, the drawings might look like those of a 6-year-old. Of course, if you are an artist or creative individual by trade, as many of the students are, these assignments are absolutely incredible opportunities for creative flowering. Will I still benefit from this if I don't complete it in full? If you just take in the lectures, you will receive considerable benefit. However, in order to maximize the personal transformation you experience, it is essential to accomplish the alchemical assignments. However, just the lectures alone have sufficient power to illuminate and transmute aspects of your psyche. But in general, passive learning is not as effective as active inner work. The passive learning is better And passive learning is better than no learning at all. If you don't do the assignments nor watch the lectures, you will not likely benefit a great deal. However, you're still likely to benefit simply from being part of the community. So, even if you don't watch any lectures, you can still benefit from being part of this special community. I don't want this to be another thing I start and abandon. What makes this different? If you habitually start and abandon things, this program actually has the potential to shed light on the origins of your self-defeating behavioral patterns. But this won't be easy. Progressing through the curriculum does require concerted willpower. That is one of the reasons we value our community so much. The block-busting session is a powerful resource for you to break through your obstacles. And the monthly Q&A with me is another powerful resource to help you progress, especially when you feel stuck or discouraged. I'm an introvert and I don't like to post things on Facebook groups, especially deeply intimate soul stuff. Can I still do this work or benefit from the community? Yes, absolutely, very much so. Many students who choose to interact rarely, if at all, in the Facebook group still benefit very much from being part of this community. They get a deeper sense of their own process by witnessing other, more extroverted students express and discuss their processes. We have students who avoid Facebook entirely. Virtually all of the homework requires creating soul artifacts. These students who avoid Facebook entirely, they simply do their homework assignments in private, in their intimacy, and submit their assignments to the TA, often with a note of gratitude letting us know how much they're benefiting from it. For the time being, we have no other online community support structure. We plan to develop a private community forum on a WordPress site, but for the time being, Facebook is our communal meeting space, and our Q&A sessions are held on a conference program called Zoom. Zoom is a great platform for the Q&A sessions, and moreover, you have the option of signing up for a free Zoom account, which will entitle you to unlimited 40-minute sessions with one other person. This means that you can use Zoom to engage in a buddy system with another student at no cost to either of you. In the past, one student signed up for a professional Zoom account for $40 a month and hosted a weekly Soul Science Cafe, which became a beloved virtual hangout every Saturday and led to the development of very profound friendships and actually people flying all over the world to visit each other. What if I enroll and then decide that this program isn't right for me? Well, this is probably the simplest answer that we have. You can cancel your membership at any time. And if you cancel within the first 30 days of enrolling, you'll receive a full refund. So our final category, and time is just about run out. On the webinar only offer, you have devoted a lot of energy and time to being with me this evening. If you're still with me, ask yourself why you're still with me. Because you feel the calling of this curriculum and you feel connected to me as a teacher. So I invite you and encourage you to take the step forward, enroll in the program now while you have this opportunity. So if you enroll in the program, here are the long-term outlook. Here's the long-term outlook for you. Where is the Basecamp curriculum leading? The Basecamp curriculum is the 100 level of the school. When you graduate from the Basecamp curriculum, you'll have the option of proceeding to the 200 level. Once you graduate that, you'll have the option of proceeding to the 300 level. The 200 level of the school is more esoteric in nature, and we will dive more deeply into the science of modern initiation. We'll focus more on the esoteric art of European alchemy, history, the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, and how these teachings work together with the teachings of Carl Gustav Jung. The 300 level is more esoteric still, with a more advanced study of alchemy and Steiner's work, and yet it also has a strong focus, and this is really important, has a strong focus on bringing the fruits of your initiatory work to bear in the world at large. The school is ultimately leading people to become powerful spiritual visionaries, leaders, and healers in the world. So the 300 level will have also an incredibly practical component as well, like how to start your practice, how to launch your brand, how to use the modern technologies and spiritual entrepreneurship to accomplish your work in the world. What are the graduation requirements? Is there a certificate? In order to graduate from the base camp curriculum, you will need to watch all the lectures and complete all the alchemical assignments. You may apply for one pass on one of the required assignments. When you graduate, you will receive a certificate. At the present moment, the School of Modern Soul Science is too new and too radical to be accepted as a diploma-granting institution. So in other words, you cannot currently get a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD in modern soul science. Hopefully one day this will change, but in the meantime, the value of the education and the transformation it can bring about speaks for itself. However, when you graduate from the base camp curriculum, you will have the opportunity to proceed to the 200 level, which contains more advanced teachings. So even though your certificate will not help you get a professorship or tenure in academia, you are nonetheless climbing a real mountain of wisdom. And each certificate you receive entitles you to proceed to the next stage of the climb. So, what will I have to show for all my work? What will you have to show? Yourself, transformed. Your own transformation will be the good fruits that you harvest from your investment in this program. But more than that, you will have proof of this transformation in the form of your soul artifacts, your assignments. All your assignments require you to create soul artifacts, like actual things, like on paper, that you can show people. These actually concretize the transformation that has taken place in your soul. So your final project will be to assemble your alchemical portfolio, which will demonstrate the magical and mysterious transformation that you have accomplished in the program. Because each assignment is a concrete soul artifact that demonstrates personal growth, your final portfolio will tell the story and give proof of the profound transformation and soul retrieval work you've done in the program. So if your spouse or your parents or your friends or whomever says to you, "What are you getting out of this anyway?" you will be able to show them your portfolio and say, "This." And you can put it in their hands, and they'll have to look at it in their hands. And the magic of what's contained in that portfolio will speak for itself. So, the last question and the last answer. Will this help me get a job? Oh, there's a typo there. Will this help me get a job? Will this help me make money? It's simple. When you move into greater alignment with your higher self, pathways open up for you. Your destiny unfolds. The base camp curriculum will help you discover your vocation, your reason for being. But it's rare for you to find your vocational job already in existence. You need to carve it out for yourself, and that is in itself a rite of passage, a necessary one in your individuation. This is what I did with the school. I knew my vocation was that of a teacher, but I had to create this school in order to be able to manifest my vocation in the world. Will the school help you do things like build an online school in which you can teach your expertise, start a private healing practice, harness a network of shamanic visionaries, build a portfolio, build your website, market yourself? Yes, actually, it will. In the 300 level of the school's curriculum, there will be a big focus on returning to the culture with the fruits of your initiatory work. The school will offer, in addition to didactic teachings, much practical teaching about how to actually work in the world, serving your higher purpose. Other teachers with their own specializations will eventually join the faculty, coaches, entrepreneurs, visionary web designers, and so on, to help you in your efforts to manifest the fruits of all your inner work. An integral part of modern soul science is to put the fruits of your inner transformation at the service of your culture. The 300 level of the school will help you do that in a very practical sense. This school does not offer magical sorceress techniques dressed up as New Age teachings about manifesting abundance, to simply bend the world of money to your will. Most people, the innocent ones that is, who do this kind of magic have no idea what they are actually getting involved with and the kind of soul contracts they are forming. In reality, Using magic or magical knowledge to manifest money or any form of material wealth involves entanglement with deceptive spirits and is to be avoided. At least in this school, that's how I feel. That's how I'm going to teach it. The base camp curriculum and your work in the school in general will bring you into greater alignment with your higher self, your divine nature. And when this happens, your path can unfold properly in accordance with your karmic destiny. Will you get a job? I cannot promise you will, but you can expect to be doing something much more aligned with your higher purpose, and that often results in making money, doing something you love and are very good at. True abundance comes from entering into alignment with your true spirit and doing the work of the Great Spirit on earth. Do not believe the New Age sorcery that promises to teach you the secrets of manifesting abundance. This is a viper pretending to be an angel. Focus on aligning with your higher self, with your higher purpose for being incarnated on earth at this time. If you are in alignment with this, everything will unfold properly in accordance with divine wisdom. You will have everything you need to accomplish your purpose, and you will receive as much abundance as you deserve according to your works, your karma, and how much abundance you create for others. Magical principles are not to be used for selfish impulses. Quite the opposite. This is not the alluring answer, but it's the truthful one. So, my friends, we've reached the end of a long webinar training. And if you are still here, my final question to you is, what are you waiting for? Step through the door, check it out. So, the link to the webinar-only offer is about to expire. And if you're the kind of person that wants to sleep on it and you're not going to get the lifetime access anyway, you weren't planning to get the lifetime access anyway, and you want to think about it some more, see what your dreams has to say, see how you feel in the morning, you can still you can still lock in to the monthly plan. And I'll be sending you some follow-up emails following up on this webinar, asking for some feedback, and checking in with you, seeing how you're doing with the knowledge that you received. So, my friends, thank you very much for your time and your extensive attention. I hope that you are filled full with knowledge, and I wish you a very good metabolization of this knowledge in the coming days. So, the time has come now for me to close the session. So this is it. Last chance. Webinar only offer closing now. And this is Andrew Camargo signing off, and I hope to see you in class.